Just a reminder, this podcast is listener supported, and that comes from YOU. You as the listener supporting this podcast can be done several different ways. One, join the Before the Lights members group. It's a fantastic group. We have a lot of fun with that. You can just simply make a donation, or you can buy me a glass of wine, a glass of vino. Yes, you can do that just like an unnamed person has done. So salute, chin chin. Thank you for the glass of wine. All the links are in the show notes, or you can go to beforethelightspod.com/support. That's beforethelightspod.com/support. And as always, thank you so much for all your support. It's what keeps this podcast going. Hey, everybody, it's Tommy Canale, and welcome back to Before the Lights Podcast, the show that tells you how they made their mark. She's a 5-time world and international boxing champion, a model, author, and a mental health public speaker. She was named a mental health warrior by CNN and founded Knowledge is Power Foundation. She's a black belt who has made numerous appearances and played herself on her own PlayStation game. She's acted in Skeeter, Pacific Blue, and hold on, let's welcome in Mia St. John. Mia, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You are welcome. And listeners, you are in for a treat for an inspiring story of what Mia has gone through in her life. Your family roots trace back to Zacatecas, Mexico. And we're going to get into your boxing career in a little bit, but tell me, what was it like for you fighting in your mother's home country in a title fight?
Oh, it was amazing. You know, I've always wanted to fight in Mexico. I fought there several times, and it was an honor because that's where my mother was from. That's where my family lives. And it was just an awesome experience.
And at a young age in Arizona, you were hit by a car. And then a California native, around age 6, you started competing in Tae Kwon Do. You went 27-1. What got you into Tae Kwon Do?
My dad, well, that was the era, you know, it was the 70s and Bruce Lee was so popular and the martial arts were very popular. And my dad became obsessed with it and put me in Taekwondo when I was 6.
You learned how to fight, from what I understand, after being bullied in grade school. Do you like to fight? Did you like to fight?
No, you know, I hated the fact that I had to fight in school just to gain respect. You know, it was, I would have rather been liked and popular. You know, I didn't want to be feared. You know, because I think that, you know, that old saying, would you rather be feared or loved? I would have rather been loved.
Gotcha. When you got into boxing, then did you revert back to some of those days of being feared in grade school?
Well, you know, boxing is a sport, and if you let your emotions get a hold of you, then chances are you're not going to have a very good fight. So you always have to maintain control. And, you know, as far as our opponents, we have no animosity towards them. It's just a sport, and the will to win takes over, you know, but we don't have any animosity towards our opponents.
Understand. And I give you courage to speak openly. You've been sober for a very long time. How long have you been sober now?
Well, I had 30 years and relapsed and got sober again a few years ago.
You had a issue with drinking at a very young age. How young were you when you started drinking?
Oh, gosh, I was probably around 11 years old and continued through my teenage years. Yeah, and finally got sober in 1988 and stayed sober for 30 years.
Mia, then when did you understand that you had a problem with drinking?
That was around 1988 when I was 21 years old.
What was the eye-opening moment for you to go, okay, I have an issue, I need to get some help?
Oh, I crashed my car into a telephone booth, if you remember what those are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just couldn't live anymore the way I was living. And I found Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's what saved me.
And you have dealt from several different disorders, and I'm not even going to go into them. People, you can look them up if you want, but you have suffered from all of them. What has helped you? Did boxing help you with some of these disorders, or was it meetings, therapy, or all of it? What helped you?
Well, I have a great psychiatrist, and I think that's key, is having a great doctor that can help you with medication, refer you to certain therapies. So it all helped, my doctors, AA, having a awesome career that, and having my kids, of course, having to stay sober for my kids.
Would you say your kids then helped save your life, or was it just a combination of a lot of different things?
It was a combination of a lot of things, but my kids were definitely an inspiration for me.
What kind of structure do you have every day to keep yourself on the sober path?
Well, the first thing I do when I get up is I head to the gym, and the gym always helps. Sometimes I'll go to the gym a few times a day, when I have a lot of anxiety. But I go to the gym, I go to my meetings, I make sure that I'm at an AA meeting every single day. Structure helps. And I do a lot of volunteer work, which helps me as well.
I will agree with you with the gym. I was at the gym this morning, and when you miss the gym, you feel it. When you go to the gym, you always feel much better about your day. So I'm with you with the gym.
Yeah.
Your pro boxing debut was in 1997 on Valentine's Day with a knockout in 54 seconds, and your nickname became the Knockout. You won your first 22 fights. What's got you to go, I want to start becoming a pro boxer? Where was that at?
I decided to turn pro in 1996, and I had my first bout in 1997. It was really, I saw Christy Martin on all the Mike Tyson cards, and I thought, hey, I can do that. I want to do that. So I left Tae Kwon Do and turned pro in boxing.
And then you signed a contract with Don King. Was that the only contract you had, was just with him?
Oh, no. I left him like a year later for Bob Arum so I could open for Oscar De La Hoya.
Okay. All right. So you got tired of Don and went over to Bob.
Yeah, more or less.
Yes. And then you said that you had seen Christy Martin. You had a couple fights with her. You won one and lost one, both unanimous decision. When you got that first fight against Christy Martin, did you feel like, hey, this is the one I saw on TV and now I'm going to get to fight her? Was it like the pinnacle for you, or what kind of emotions were going through that?
Oh, it was so exciting, but a lot of fear, because I knew what a great fighter she was. And just going the distance with her in the first fight was a win for me. And then, of course, our final bout when I won was so exhilarating. And yeah, like I realized I just beat my my idol, basically,
The second time you fought her, then, were you more comfortable? It wasn't just about going the distance. Was it more about winning the second time?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The second time, I definitely knew that was my destiny. Like I had to win. And I could have knocked her out, but I chose not to. I chose to hug her in the end and just let the bell ring, the final bell ring, because she gave up in the 10th round.
Your final record was 49-14-2. Boxing, sometimes I wouldn't say sometimes, there are people out there that look at women's boxing as a novelty and not really a sport. Being somebody that has had title fights and had so many fights, what do you say to those people? I've seen women's boxing. It is not a novelty, but somebody who is actually in there, what do you say to those kind of people?
Well, I think it was a novelty like in my era. But now you have such great female fighters that are really advanced in the sport. You can't not take them seriously. The sport for women has evolved. Whereas like our ability back in the day was sort of mediocre. Now you have a lot of women who fight just as well, if not better than men.
What was the reason when you decided in 2017 to retire, and how difficult was it to walk away from the sport?
It was very difficult, and it wasn't really my choice. A lot of the commissions wouldn't license me anymore. And I mean, for good reason. I'd been through a lot of fights, and I was 49, almost 50 at the time. And so they had good reason. So I could not book any more fights. So I had to retire.
Did you still, you say you go to the gym, but are you still doing the same things or some of the same things that you did then to stay in shape now?
No, not really. Like every morning, my workouts are focused on weightlifting. And I do a lot of hiking for my cardio. So it's a lot different of a workout. Now I'm more focused on weights. Whereas back in the day, I was more focused on boxing and cardio.
Do you ever stop and look back and go, I was a 5-time world champion and I had all these fights?
Crazy.
Is it crazy to you to think back all that?
It is. It's crazy. Sometimes I wonder like how I did it. Like, how did I step into that ring more than 70 times? It's crazy.
Could you do it today? Could you step in the ring?
No, not today. Definitely not.
No, you don't have that same gumption as you did then to go, hey, I'll get in the
No,
ring.
not at all. No.
In 1999, you were the first boxer to pose in Playboy. You were the face of boxing. Was the reason that you chose to do this to show that you can be a Playboy model and also be a fighter?
Well, yeah, I wanted to show the world that I was still very feminine and that's okay, and I'd be lying if I said money wasn't a factor. It was an awesome payday, and it was something I was the cover of the magazine. So how could I turn that down?
I'm sure to this day you still have people want you to sign the cover of those magazines.
I still do autograph signings. In fact, I'm doing an autograph signing for the Marines on Super Bowl Sunday.
That is awesome. We're going to get into some things and some things you overcame. You had a skiing accident where there was talk of a possible amputation of one of your legs, and you had 2 operations to remove a blood clot. Talk about that incident and where your mindset was there.
Well, I was worried because I had a fight scheduled within it was a month, and the doctors said they needed to operate because I had necrosis. And I said, can it wait till after the fight? And the doctor said, no, you need to go into immediate surgery because the infection could spread to your heart and kill you within days.
Whoa.
So, yeah, I had to have an emergency surgery.
How long was your recovery till you got back to 100%? Or are you back to 100% ever?
Yeah. I was back within a couple of months.
In 2011, you created a youth wellness program and wrote a book, The Knockout World, which sold nationwide. You also have a newer book called Fighting for My Life, a memoir about a mother's loss and grief. Before we go to the second book, I want to talk about the first one. When you first put together this wellness program and rolled it out, what did you think would happen? Did you think it would go nationwide? Did you think it might just be something a few people will get? Or what were you hoping to accomplish there?
Well, I wanted to create a workout that people could do, that the average person could do. And I took that program to centers that catered to minorities and minorities living in poverty. And I wanted to bring fitness to that group of people. And that's what my program did. That's what we still do today. I have a program at our homeless shelter in Palm Springs, and I bring fitness to them twice a week.
Love that. Second book was after your son Julian passed away at age 24. He had developed paranoid schizophrenia, which was not diagnosed until the age of 18. His art is displayed at the Laguna Gallery of Contemporary Art. His personal studio, Stone Art, is a free center for young adults suffering from mental illness, homelessness, and addiction. I give you credit. How difficult was it to write the book? And did you just want to get it out there so other people won't experience what you went through?
Well, it was difficult writing the book because I had to live it all over again. But it was very cathartic for me.
You won a lawsuit against rehab and pushed California mental health facilities to ban plastic bags and mental wards. How long did that take to get through?
About 7 years. 7 years of fighting till they finally banned plastic bags.
7 years. Was there any time in that 7 years, Mia, where you thought that it was going to get through and they declined it or pushed it back for whatever reason?
I didn't think it would be such a long journey. I thought it was obvious not to have plastic bags in suicide units. Because my son wasn't the first to take his life with a plastic bag. Other kids had done the same thing. So I thought it was a no-brainer. I didn't know it would take that long.
What was the biggest obstacle then for the legislation to see that and get it through?
I'm not sure what their reasoning was. I have no idea.
At least you got it through. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And are both books available on Amazon?
Yes.
Okay. Listeners, I'll put links in the show notes to both those books where you can get your hands on them. The Knockout World and Fighting for My Life.
It's the Knockout Workout.
Knockout Workout. All right, the Knockout Workout. We'll put a link to that. And also Fighting for My Life, a memoir about a mother's loss and grief. You can get them in the show notes. I want to talk about something you've been really pushing and helping with, and that's the homelessness in LA. It almost seems from me here in Las Vegas and traveling back and forth to Los Angeles that they've just either neglected it, they're turning a blind eye, or they don't care. It just doesn't seem like they're doing anything to help it. Are you feeling the same way?
Well, I know that they cater to a group that are patient advocates, which means they can't enforce treatment on the mentally ill. I, of course, am for the opposite. I think that we have to force treatment because a lot of these homeless people are mentally ill and are not in their right mind. So it's to me, it's like, we don't let patients with dementia roam the streets or Alzheimer's roam the streets naked and out of control. We don't allow that, but yet we do for the mentally ill. So the mentally ill, they're brain diseases, they're brain illnesses, and we have to treat them the same that we would treat any other patient with dementia or Alzheimer's.
Do you have a plan or an idea how that could happen, where we could, for lack of better terms, and quote, force, them to get help?
Well, it just depends on, we're a blue state here in California. So we vote, usually for a politician who's a Democrat. But I think if we got a Republican in power, we probably wouldn't have this problem.
We have an election coming up, so maybe.
Oh, I doubt it. I think California is going to stay blue for quite some time.
You have the Mia St. John Foundation to empower individuals suffering from mental illness, homelessness, addiction, and poverty by providing programs to better educate, inform, and improve physical and mental health. And you've kind of touched on that. But how long have you had this foundation going?
I've had it since 2010. Our first program was in Zacatecas, Mexico. We provided a school with electricity, computers, internet, teachers to teach computers, to an area that only went up to the third grade. So, and then after that, I moved the program, which is still there. It's still in Mexico, but I have programs here now in the United States.
What do you have upcoming for the foundation? Do you have any events coming up, or what kind of things are you looking to push towards?
Yeah, well, we just had our annual fundraiser, and now we have a program at our mental health facility in Palm Springs, and I look forward to continuing that.
What is the current space of mental health? Where is that at in your mind?
I think the public is still uneducated in mental illness. A lot of people cannot tell you what is schizophrenia, what is bipolar. They have no clue what that looks like. And I think that until we educate ourselves of these illnesses, we're going to continue to see mass shooters because a lot of them have mental illness and are not in their right mind. And just like the mother who was found guilty for her son's mass shooting, like if she knew the signs, which the signs were clear, if she was educated, she would have known her son was very ill.
Mia, I've thought about this with mental illness. Years ago, you and I remember Say No to Drugs campaign. It was everywhere.
Yes.
It was everywhere.
Yeah.
Every billboard, every commercial, every radio announcement. I mean, they plastered that everywhere, and the word got out. And then not too long ago, they plastered about social media and kids posting and tagging and being part of, inappropriate content. And some still do, but for the most part, that word has gotten out. But why is there not a campaign for mental health in the same aspect?
Right. I don't know, because it's desperately needed. We need to know what schizophrenia looks like, what these illnesses look like, because it's hard to tell when you don't know what the symptoms are. And like I said, we're going to continue to have mass shootings until we do something about it.
Did you have to learn the signs yourself with your own child? I mean, did you know that your son was dealing with that or no?
Well, luckily, my mother made me get an education before I turned pro. I had a bachelor's in psychology, so I already was well aware of mental illness and what it looked like. So when my son displayed symptoms, I got him help.
Did they not diagnose him correctly right away? Did other people not know what was going on?
They were unclear prior to the age of 18, but by 18, they knew it was schizophrenia.
For your foundation and you personally, what is your purpose? I know it's mental health, but I know you want to get people off the streets and things like that, but do you have a vision for a bigger purpose?
To educate the public on mental illness. That would be my biggest goal.
And do you use your past sometimes to help get the word across and things that you have gone through and things that have happened in your life?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously I talk about my past in the book and in my public speaking as well.
What regrets do you have looking back in your life?
Well, I regret the hospital, obviously, my son was in. If I had known that they had a history of death, I didn't find that out until later. I would have never put my son in that hospital. Um, but I did know, I didn't find out until after he died, the amount of deaths that they had. We had to uncover that through the help of the LA Times. They're the ones who actually got me the information.
So going forward, you bring up a great point. Is there some place where families can go to look about hospitals before they put their children in them to see if there's been deaths there before, so they know where they're putting their child?
Well, it's hard to find out. You have to file with the Freedom of Information Act to get that information. You could also try to inquire with the Department of Mental Health. But a lot of the deaths and violations are kept covered up.
That right there is alarming, because families could be thinking that they're putting their child in a place that can help them, and maybe they can, but they could be putting them in a place that has a history of not helping them. I would think that should be made public knowledge. No?
Right. But it's not. You have to dig for that information and file a Freedom of Information Act, and it's very difficult to get that information.
What is the website for your foundation?
MiaSt.JohnFoundation.org.
And I'll put a link to that as well, listeners, in the show notes. Mia, before we close, I want to just end on this. When you look at your life up to this date and then where you're going forward, does it seem like you've lived two different lives? Like, I look back on that, I did that, but that seems like a whole different lifetime ago.
Yes, my life as a fighter, it seems like ages ago, and I'm a completely different person today than I was then.
Well, I wish you nothing but success in going forward with your fight against mental illness, and hopefully we can get this out to some people and get more people aware of it. And if there's somebody listening to this that has the power, the connections, and the financial backing to make a worldwide campaign about mental illness, I mean, reach out to Mia St. John or reach out to me or whatever. And I mean, I think that's something that needs to get done. I mean, when the media wants to get something done, they'll get it done. So we just need to get the right person to listen to this.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Mia, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Listeners, before we go, join the exclusive Before the Lights members group. Click the link in the show notes. It includes private video calls with former guests, a one-of-a-kind poker chip, extra content, and more. It's only $7.99 a month, and it's your way to support the show. That's going to do it for this episode of Before the Lights. I'm Tommy Canale. And until next time, everybody, a salute, a chin chin.